Have you ever wondered what is this number one common quality that millionaires and billionaires have and which distinguishes them from the very poor? Have you ever wondered why people who grew up in similar social and economic backgrounds may end up worlds apart, some of them ending up very, very poor, some of them ending up very rich? This has been something that I have been very passionate and very curious about, and if you're anything like me, then this video is for you. Hello friends, my name is Mike, and in this video we're discussing about growth mindset. What is it? Why is it important? And most importantly, how can we develop it to get the most benefit of it? And as always, I promise, no fortune cookie wisdom here, no cliches and stuff like this. The best thing we can do when we start to explore a new subject is to define it. As Einstein said, if I had only 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution. So let's begin with the definition here and see what Professor Carol Dweck, who is a professor at Stanford University, who has studied this subject for decades, multiple awards under her belt, has to say about this. In a fixed mindset, people believe their basic qualities, like their intelligence or talent, are simply fixed traits. They spend their time documenting their intelligence or talent instead of developing them. They also believe that talent alone creates success without effort. Now, for the growth mindset, it says, in a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just a starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Now, Dweck goes on to say that as humans, we operate at the same time with a fixed and a growth mindset, and for a very good reason. And to explain this, she uses the example of a cliff. Most humans have a fixed mindset about jumping unaided off a cliff. No amount of belief in your ability to fly, no amount of hard work and practice, e.g. jumping off a stair, a table, etc., will prepare you to fly. Knowing that you cannot fly and that no amount of work will change your ability to fly is a normal, appropriate, life-saving, fixed mindset. So after we got a basic understanding of what a growth and a fixed mindset is, and after we saw that at the same time we operate both with a fixed and a growth mindset, now let's move on to see why is it important to also develop a growth mindset. First of all, let's make something clear that mindset is a part of our personality. Specifically, it is a part of our personality on which we can have some control. Even just by knowing about the two different mindsets, the fixed and the growth mindset, and their characteristics, we gain insights into them and we have a way to control them. Of course, this goes into the field of metacognition, where basically you are aware of many cognitive or mental processes that are happening inside your brain. But here we're going to stay more on the surface level, where we're going basically to discuss the traits of the both mindsets. So let's explore the first benefit that we get from understanding both mindsets. The first thing we get is that mindset changes the meaning of failure. Someone with a growth mindset, when they fail, they're going to say, oh, I failed. Somebody with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, is going to say, I am a failure, okay? Failure defines that person. I am a failure and there is nothing I can do about it. But in the growth mindset, people are saying, okay, I failed. What can I learn? What did I do wrong? What can I learn from it? How can I readjust my way of thinking, my way of action, so that I can continue and reach my goal the next time? Make no mistake, even if you have a growth mindset and you experience failure, it still is going to sting, okay? But your failure is being treated as a problem, as an obstacle to be overcome, and not as a self-defining state. When somebody with a fixed mindset says, I am a failure, there is nothing they can do to fix it. But when someone says, with a growth mindset, I failed, then you treat this as an obstacle to be overcome. It is easily understood that somebody with a fixed mindset, when they fail, they have no way to move on. If, for example, you say, I am a failure, I'm not competent enough, where do you go from there? What do you do from there? And of course, we all have noticed people in our lives that when they fail, instead of trying to repair the problem, to overcome the obstacle, learn from the experience from the failure and move on, what they do is that they try to repair their damaged self-esteem. And one of the ways that they do this is they compare themselves with somebody who is worse than them. And of course, we all know that you can only get better by comparing yourself to somebody who is better than you. At this point, of course, there is something that is very, very important to understand, and I want to note this here. If I'm not mistaken, it's coming from Jordan Peterson, who said, don't compare yourself to who someone else is today, but who you were yesterday, which means keep comparing yourself to your past self and make sure that you get better and better rather than who somebody is today, because someone may have been working that road for 20 years and kept improving for over 20 years. Okay, they may have, their life circumstances could have been different. They may have been born smarter, with more money, with a better environment. You never know what's going to happen. Of course, I don't want this to sound like an excuse, okay? But you must be in a silver line, somewhere in the middle, between comparing yourself to people who are better than you, okay? Because you see them as an inspiration and you want to become better and to become like them, but at the same time, you must not compare yourself to them so much that it's going to be the thief of joy, okay? Because you're going to say, oh, I am so less competent than them, I don't have their money, I don't have their social status, whatever that may be, okay? The second reason why knowing about the mindset is very, very important is because mindset changes what effort actually means. And you can understand this with a very simple question. If you have talent, do you also have to work hard enough to develop your talent? Or to reverse a bit the question, if you work hard on something, whatever that might be, you're trying to develop a new ability, a new skill, does it mean that you're not talented? Most of our society, unfortunately, seems to revolve around an either-or kind of way of thinking about this. Either you have to work hard on something, or you have the innate ability and you don't have to work hard at all. Our society seems to think that if you're a genius, everything comes easy to you. Of course, could not be further from the truth, and all you have to think about is Michael Jordan, for example. Despite his amazing ability in basketball, he still had to work much, much harder than all his teammates to achieve his amazing results. Another way on how mindsets affect effort is that people who are characterized as prodigies or geniuses do not want to fail. And in order for them not to fail, they will not try. Which means what? For example, let's assume that we have a student who is clearly gifted in mathematics and he is the best in the town. Everybody, every teacher, every parent knows that this kid is a prodigy, he or she is incredible in mathematics. So what that kid subconsciously do is that instead of trying to study for mathematics more so that he can become more competent not only in the small limits of his town, but in the limits of the region or further out to be one of the best in the country, that student chooses not to compete, for example, in regional competitions or in country competitions, worldwide competitions, because he is afraid that if he fails, when he goes back to his country, when he goes back to his town, all of a sudden he will not be viewed as the prodigy anymore. In order for him or her to avoid this, they just choose not to take place, not to participate in the competitions on a regional or national level. That way, he or she limits their ability to evolve. Now, mindset affects effort in one more way. If you don't try, then you have an excuse for whenever you fail. For example, if you fail, you will just say to yourself, oh, I didn't just try hard enough, and that's why I failed. But one of the hardest things you can say to yourself is, I did my best, I tried everything I could, I studied as much as I could, and still I was not enough. That is one of the hardest things you can say to yourself, and still, it is one of the only ways to move forward in life and to become better. It is easily understandable from what we said earlier that people with a growth mindset take responsibility for their success. The fixed mindset negatively affects success with its limiting beliefs, and yet people with a growth mindset understand that if you want to succeed, it will take hard work, focus, and persistence. At the same time, mindsets affect our happiness. We all have internal monologues, things that we say to ourselves every single time. Now, people with a fixed mindset focus on statements, while people with a growth mindset focus on questions. To give you an example of this, all we have to remember is what Robert Kiyosaki said, which is one of my favorite quotes ever, who says, "A statement closes the mind, a question opens the mind." What he means by this can be easily understood by the following example. If you face a situation, for example, and a difficult situation, and you say, "This is too hard, I cannot do this," this is a statement. Now, a statement closes the mind. Your brain at that point is convinced by what you just said that you cannot do this. So that statement closed the mind, and it seriously damaged your ability to move forward and to overcome this object, this problem. But if you change that statement into a question, and instead of saying, I cannot do this, you say, how can I do this? Then the brain opens up and starts thinking about innovative ways of how you can move forward and surpass this problem. Okay, so we understood all this, but how can we develop a growth mindset? Practically, there are 3 things we can do to help us develop a growth mindset. The first thing is to understand, as we saw earlier in the example with a cliff, that we both operate with a fixed and a growth mindset at the same time, and at some points, the fixed mindset can have its benefits. But for most circumstances, having a growth mindset is going to be most beneficial for us. Now, the second step to changing our mindset from a fixed to a growth mindset is to, and of course this takes a lot of practice, is to monitor ourselves and watch out for what triggers the fixed mindset. When do we hear that internal voice that says, you are not good enough, you are a failure, all those statements that we described earlier? Is it when we fail to reach a deadline? Is it when we fail on something we have planned for a long time to do? When is it? The more time we spend checking ourselves internally, okay, the better it will become and the more clear those triggers will be. And of course, step number 3 to developing a growth mindset is related to step number 2. After we become better and better to understanding and to realizing the triggers for the fixed mindset, we also need to learn how to counter them. For example, when you know that you failed a deadline, which is step number 2, and you expect to hear the internal voice saying you are a failure, we move on to step number 3. You need to know how to counter this, and you need to say to that internal voice that, you know what, no, I'm not a failure, I did my best, I needed to prepare better, I needed to practice more, next time I'm going to fix this and this, and I am going to succeed. And here's a bonus step number 4, hit the subscribe button, it also helps you to develop automatically growth mindset. Finally, one of the most interesting things that I found in Professor Dweck's book was her saying that although a fixed mindset tells you that your innate abilities can be developed, what it doesn't tell you is how long it is going to take you for you to develop, or what are the maximum heights that you can reach. So the real question is, if you're born average, can you still reach greatness? The following story, found also in Professor Dweck's book, is going to shed some light on this, and it is very, very important. And it is the story of Thomas Edison as it is described by his biographer. Specifically, his biographer says, more or less, Thomas Edison was a regular boy of his time and place. What eventually set him apart was his mindset and drive. He never stopped being the curious, tinkering boy looking for new challenges. I just need to add here that Darwin and Tolstoy were both considered to be average for their time. People with a growth mindset don't believe that anybody can be anything given enough effort, time, or education. Not everyone can become the next Einstein. But what we know is that a person's true potential remains unknown, and no one is sure and certain of what they can become given enough passion and effort. That's it for today's video, friends. If you enjoyed, remember to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'm waiting to hear your comments down below. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.